Tonight you'll put on a jacket without thinking twice. Your hand reaches for the sleeve. Your body barely registers the choice. But the real answer for why you do this is far stranger than "it's cold outside." Humans are naked apes. Not metaphorically, literally. Compared to almost every other mammal your size, your skin is bare. No fur, no thick coat, just skin, exposed to wind and rain and sun. So how did a hairless animal survive ice ages, deserts, and mountain winters? It didn't adapt its body. It adapted its behavior. For most of human history, there was no such thing as getting dressed. There was only survival. And clothing, it turns out, might be one of the most important inventions your ancestors ever made. More important than fire, some researchers argue, because fire keeps you warm in one place. Clothing lets you move. Archaeologist Ian Gilligan has spent decades studying when and why clothing began. His research points somewhere unexpected. Clothing didn't start as fashion. It didn't start as modesty either. It started as a tool, a piece of technology, as essential as a spear or a fire pit. Here's the strange part. Humans didn't leave Africa once. They left several times, over hundreds of thousands of years, and most of those early attempts failed. Bodies built for heat met landscapes built for cold. Something had to change. And it wasn't biology. It was invention. So when did it actually begin? You can't carbon date a piece of leather that rotted away 70,000 years ago. There's no ancient t-shirt in a museum drawer, so scientists had to get creative. And the answer came from somewhere you'd never expect. Lice. Human head lice and human body lice are close relatives, but body lice can only survive in clothing. They cling to fabric, not skin, which means body lice couldn't have existed until clothing did. Geneticist Mark Stoneking, working with researchers Ralph Kittler and Manfred Kayser, studied the genetic divergence between these two louse species. Their DNA held a hidden clock. By measuring the mutation rate between head lice and body lice, the team estimated when body lice split off as a new species. Their answer stunned a lot of people. Roughly 170,000 years ago, give or take tens of thousands of years, but firmly in that range. Long before humans built cities, long before agriculture, long before written language of any kind. Think about that. Clothing may be older than almost every other human invention you consider civilized. Older than pottery, older than the wheel, older than farming. Your ancestors were sewing before they were settling down. But why then? Why 170,000 years ago and not earlier? This is where the story gets tied to the planet itself. That window lines up closely with a brutal cold snap in Earth's climate history, a period when ice sheets expanded and Africa itself grew colder and drier than modern humans experience today. Survival meant insulation, and insulation meant covering the body. Gilligan's research adds another layer. He argues clothing wasn't just about warmth. It was about controlling exposure. Wrapping the body in animal hide reduced heat loss at night when temperatures dropped fastest. It allowed humans to sleep in open, exposed places instead of retreating to caves every evening, which meant more territory, which meant more food sources, which meant survival odds tilted just slightly in humanity's favor. Here's a detail that rarely makes it into the story. Early clothing wasn't sewn the way you imagine sewing today. There were no needles yet, not for a long stretch of this timeline. Early hide wearing likely meant draping, wrapping, tying. Simple, functional, effective enough to matter but nowhere near tailored. That changed later. Bone needles, some dating back roughly 40,000 years, show up at sites across Europe and Asia. Fine, eyed needles, small enough to thread with sinew. This is the moment clothing shifted from wrapped hide to something closer to fitted garments. Warmer, more efficient, able to trap air against skin the way modern insulated jackets still do. And this timing matters too. Around this same period, humans pushed into some of the coldest environments they had ever inhabited. Siberia, the Arctic fringe, places where survival without tailored clothing would have been almost impossible. Better clothing didn't just follow human expansion. In many cases, it enabled it. Meanwhile, Neanderthals, who had lived in cold Europe far longer than modern humans, seem to have relied more on their bodies than on clothing technology. Some researchers suggest Neanderthal physiology, stockier, more cold-adapted, may have reduced the pressure to invent tailored garments. Modern humans, built for warmer climates originally, had no such biological shortcut. They had to invent their way into the cold instead. So clothing becomes something remarkable when you sit with it. Not decoration first, not identity first. A survival technology, invented by a species that couldn't grow the fur it needed, so it built one instead. And once invented, it never stopped evolving. Wrapped hides became tailored hides. Tailored hides became woven fabric. Woven fabric became the closet you own today, filled with jackets and layers you barely think about as you grab one on your way out the door. Which brings you back to tonight. That jacket, that instinctive reach for the sleeve. It feels automatic because, in a sense, it is. You're not just staying warm. You're repeating a decision your ancestors made under a colder sky 170,000 years before you were born, when survival depended on wrapping bare skin in something borrowed from another animal. They didn't have fur. So they made one. And tonight, without thinking twice, you're still wearing it.